I've never been against athlete compensation, but I do think where we are now, in talking to a ton of coaches in both major sports, it's a little messy to say the least. I listened to a Nick Saban, and I want to get your thoughts on all that Nick is saying. And I get it. A lot of people are going to say he is get off my lawn guy now on his retirement tour. But don't you see something having to be done, not limiting compensation, but at least, like you mentioned, the NFL, it's not an antitrust violation to make sure that you honor contracts and you don't tamper with players under contract, et cetera, et cetera. We have none of that now. It is truly anarchy when it comes to all that type of format. So what would you like to see, if anything, be done to improve the current situation?
So it's not necessarily I'd like it, but I mean, the reason the NFL can do all that is because their players are employees. So
right.
the solution, I'm not saying I like it or this is how I would do it, but this is what's going to happen. And again, go read Brett Kavanaugh. It ain't about me, it ain't about Nick Saban, it ain't about anybody else. It's about Brett Kavanaugh, really. If you make them employees, then you can sign them to contracts. You can limit all. That's the whole thing. Is you can't look if you're volunteering at the animal shelter every Saturday morning, and you volunteer over there, and then one day someone says, "Hey, man, they got free bagels if you volunteer over the soup kitchen," and so you go over the soup kitchen because you want a free bagel. The animal shelter can't say you can't do that. You've been volunteering here. Now, if you're an employee at one, you can't leave your job, right? So some of this is like that's how the court sees it. Whether we see it that way, all that, but that's how they see it. And I'm just trying to be realistic. A lot of what these guys were talking about with guardrails was we want to have this. We want to say we don't have the same system that we had before, but we basically want to have the same system. And I'm like, these guardrails are never going to work. You're never going to be able to enforce them. You're never going to be able to investigate them. And quite honestly, if you look at the Tennessee case, sure, done. They can't do it. I thought the entire guardrail bit was a waste of time. And they've spent years now focused on how can I keep what I wanted. I understand it is harder for coaches. I understand it is a bigger headache for coaches. I understand all of that. If I was a head coach, I would not like any of that. I would like that my salary is now millions and millions of dollars, right? The salaries go up for all these guys. So this broken industry is a pretty good one to be in. Everyone's industry in life changes. Everybody's, you hang around a job for 50 years. Like Nick Saban's like, well, I've been here 50 years and now it's different. Whose job has not changed in 50 years? Whose industry? Who hasn't had a disruption and stuff? So some of this stuff is just what happens. And so my thing with the guardrails, the lack of guardrails, until you get serious and say, these guys are going to be employees, we're going to have contracts. We may even allow a union, which would be extremely weak to form, or we're going to get onto the real stuff. I'm no guardrails. Let the free market play out. If some school wants to try to spend $50 million to buy a team, let them. We'll see if it works. Probably won't. If you listen to the early crying and wailing, it was all the rich will get richer. The Alabama will get all the players, all this stuff. College football at that top 30 level is more competitive now than it was before. It wasn't competitive at all for like 10 years there. When it's no longer about your facilities and your proximity to talent, when a school like a Michigan, I mean, we're hardly talking about a plucky underdog here, but they were non-competitive on the national basis for really one season out of the last like 60. They were able to keep their players. Like if you look, there's more parity now at the top. Look at this college basketball tournament. It's wide open. Duke's got 7-8 losses. Kansas got 8 losses. Like last year, FAU and San Diego State played in a Final Four. Like all the stuff, if you let the free market play out, I'm just a free market guy. It's just my sensibilities. I'm just a free market guy in life. Let them all compete and see what happens. It hasn't gone at all like they warned us it would go. And so that's why I don't really see the need other than it's more work for coaches who are getting paid more to do it. I get some of the fans are like, man, it stinks we got a good player and he leaves, but you also can get a good player in for a year.